I think it's very important that potential buyers understand the due diligence they need to do about their homeowners association, whether it's a condominium building or it's a single family or a townhome community. There are financial issues that affect the community that they might not recognize. Buyers focus on the house itself,
Yeah.
and they kind of ignore this other huge potential factor in the place that they're going to live. They should make sure that their association is in good financial shape, that they have a reserve study, and that it's well funded. My preference is 100%. Because there's no law in this state that requires reserve funds, it's possible association could have zero in their reserve funds. And when the time comes, that will be a very painful experience for a buyer.
For everybody.
They should look at the history of what kind of expenses they have. I know of one property that has every year they have significant reserve expenses because of the age of the building. And that amount of money, they don't have reserves for that because it is just chewing through their money. And so every year they're having a special assessment of $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. That you need to know about that.
I have heard that there is a subdivision in Roswell that has a lake that the state of Georgia says, hey, the dam is unsafe, and they've had to drain the lake and figure out how to get the probably over $1 million to solve the problem. Is that actually happening?
Yeah, that's pretty close to the story. I don't remember all the exact details, but that's pretty close to what's happening there. And once again, that's a case where due diligence would have had people ask questions about, there's a dam, who takes care of that dam, who's responsible for it. Dams are not included in reserve studies. They're 50-year construction items, so engineers do not plan for their demise, so to speak. They assume they're going to live forever.
I get how you would say, hey, tell me about your reserve study, and then be confident that everything was taken care of. But what question would you ask, or what due diligence would you do to determine, hey, this is something that could be our problem, might be our problem someday, but might not be included in the reserve study? Because I'm thinking, as a home buyer, I'm not sure I would know what questions to ask.
Basically what I'm saying is a buyer should be asking about everything that they can see and touch.
Okay.
If it's there, they should say to the seller, who's in writing, of course, we all know it has to be in writing.
Yep.
Okay, who's responsible for that dam? Okay. And what does the association know about it? Communities that have large detention pond lakes, there's significant maintenance expense that goes with those on a periodic basis. And once again, if the community is tuned up on that, they're setting money aside for it. Mm-hmm. But it's not a reserve study item. The engineers don't look at that. They just say there's a lake, you're going to need to dredge it. Okay, you're going to need to fix the outflow pipes, and outflow pipe could cost you tens of thousands of dollars to repair.
I would assume in some cases HOAs could overfund. And so what happens when they're overfunding? I mean, they could say, well, we need 100,000, but they don't really need 100,000. They just think they do. And I would assume in that case, you're paying additional dues as a member of the HOA that you don't need to.
You don't see that very often.
Okay, got it.
I mean, we're talking about a handful I've been in business over 30 years. A handful of times I've seen that situation where the board was intentionally collecting more money, racking up more money than they had plans for. So that doesn't happen very often, but it does have some potential ramifications in that, one, they're collecting money from members that is adversely affecting the members' pocketbook. Like you said, they got things they want to spend their money on. That it's not sitting in the association's bank account. There's also a small problem with the fact that the federal government looks on reserves that are collected that don't have a purpose as being income to the homeowners, being income to the association. Now, I will tell you, in 30 years, I've never seen the IRS recognize this or wake up to it. It's so infrequent. But you never know when somebody in your neighborhood is going to figure out there's something wrong and become a whistleblower, so to speak.